Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders, so let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.
Are you ready to level up your team skill development? Well, Bology is here to support you in driving accountability and skill development. The Bology app is more than just tracking. It's a resource for enhancing skills, knowledge, and mindset across your program. Join coaches all across the country using Bology to simplify training and empower your athletes. Let's build consistency, accountability, and skill development together.
So, Coach, appreciate all that. Can't wait for this to get going. With all the praise and stuff, you ready? You ready to get going?
Sure. Anything you want to talk about, I'm
Okay.
game for it. I'm grateful and flattered and humbled to be here with you.
Awesome. Well, we're recording this whole time, and I do typically use just the fun little bits at the beginning as kind of an intro. I'll do a bio on you separately as we get closer to the time, just to save a little bit here. I have the questions that you chose, and I love them. And normally, like with a guy like you, we probably don't even have to actually say the questions. It just flows right through, but it gives me a little bit of a roadmap. It's 4:53. What time do you have? When do you need to be off here so I can be conscious of it?
Buddy, my wife has got the express elevator straight to heaven. She is the most understanding basketball wife that I've ever known. And the old deal, I'll kick my coverage. I've got a kitchen pass to stay and talk basketball as long as you'll have me.
Yeah, well, my wife knows on these nights. So, I mean, usually we go for hour and a half, but she knows not to have a time set. So, because this is fun for me. But yeah, we'll just start going through some questions and then see where it goes.
Awesome.
All right. So culture is a buzzword that thrown around quite a bit now. I remember Coach Fitch from Birdville, making a comment about how we never used to say that word. It wasn't a thing, but culture's always been there. And you either have one that's moving up or moving down, very hard or impossible for it to stay the same. In your opinion, how does culture drive performance?
Well, I think I know the word culture has almost become cliche, right? I mean, so many people use it, but we do as well. We're part of the cliche, I guess. But I really do believe that everything that you do, whether it be outside the gym, inside the gym, it's for your program, it's all connected. It's all got to be connected. And so I think that there's many things that drive it, but I've heard on some of your other podcasts, people talk about their standards and things like that. I guess what I would do is rewind and say, like, your standards have to be there before you can have culture. And you got to determine kind of what you want your culture to be. Well, like, what do you stand for as a head coach? Like, what are the things that are most important to you? And yes, I don't know any guy that is in coaching that isn't competitive and doesn't dream of winning a state championship. And I'm certainly on that list. And but it's got to be about more than just basketball, right? I mean, it has to be about more. If it's just basketball, then we're not making that much money. I understand, right. If you're in the NBA, it's more about the money. But we're high school coaches, and we're supposed to teach more than just X's and O's. And in my opinion, my father was a coach for 39 years. And I first got the bug to become a coach really from him. He had so many friends in the coaching fraternity. He had such great relationships, and there were always coaches and coaches' families over at our house when I was growing up. And then he had so many former players that went into coaching. I always thought that was just amazing, and I wanted to kind of follow it along. For me, while I was always a huge sports fan of all levels, both collegiately and professionally, for me, the giants were your high school coaches. And I loved the idea of trying to join that fraternity and be a part of it. But I also love the fact that, and I'm totally biased, I wish my father were still with us today. I'd probably have him sitting in here on the meeting with us. But it was not just that he had great relationships, but why did he have those great relationships? Well, he taught kids things that beyond just the game. And that always appealed to me as well. And, when he retired, he said, I asked him a couple of questions, and he said, kids haven't changed. In my 39 years, kids hadn't changed. Some of the parents have changed. Some of the parenting ideas have changed, but kids still want to be a part of something. They want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And whether they know it or not, most of the time, those kids still want discipline. They don't necessarily know it, but there's something that inside them that wants it. And I believe in all of that stuff. And so the standards, I think, come before the culture. And so, how do we do anything? What's Greg quote? How you do anything is how you do everything, right? So it's all got to be connected. Nobody's going to care in 10 years if one of our guys knows how to run an out of bounds play or break a press. But they are going to care, is he a good husband? Is he a good father? Does he contribute to his community? And we're not going to be solely responsible for that, but there's a lot of things through basketball that we can help teach those things with, right? We don't want basketball to use kids. We want kids to use basketball to teach them and open roadmaps for them down the line. When let's be honest, most of us, are not going to be talented enough to get their education paid for through basketball. We're just not. I think your standards have to, like Coach K had a great interview. One of my assistants, JJ Anguiano, who's fantastic, a couple years ago, he said, I was watching an interview with Coach K. It was after they got knocked out in the second round or third round. It was one of their, they still went 2 or 3 deep in the tournament and everybody was disappointed because, they weren't in the Final Four. Typical. But he said that Coach K was being interviewed and he said, I really like this team. I like these kids. I thought we had a chance to maybe make a run, but the truth of the matter is we weren't worthy of winning a championship. We didn't do things off the court that made us worthy of being champions. And that really kind of struck a chord in me. Like, what do you stand for? Are we teaching kids to fight entitlement every day? Like, we've got to fight entitlement in every day in every way. And I think that, do we park where we're supposed to park at school, or are we parking in the teacher's lot because it's closer? Do we cut in line in the cafeteria because we're an athlete, or do we kind of help move the line along and take our rightful place? Do we show up on time? Are we respectful to our teachers? Do we hold the door? Do we say please, thank you? Are we doing things that frankly are not that common, sadly, I think, in our society anymore? And if we aren't, then they're still young people. They're still the same as they were generations ago. They still want the same things. They just don't know it. But maybe we're not doing a good enough job of teaching those things. So I think, it's important to teach kids how to make some self-sacrifice, be a part of something special, right? Are you willing to get your hair cut? Are you willing to keep a clean shave? Are you willing to sacrifice a few things so that you can be part of an elite unit and a special unit? And that's our basketball team. And then if you get all of those things in place, then that helps determine your culture. Like, for us, everything is related. So then the culture piece comes in, and is it on the court or off the court? Again, I think it's all related. When I first moved to San Antonio, I took the assistant's job at Clark High School, and I worked with I worked for 3 head coaches, and they were all incredible. One of them's in the Hall of Fame, TABC Hall of Fame, Carl Owens at Harlingen, and then Greg Kiger I worked with for 1 year at McAllen. We're still close to this day. He opened my eyes to so many things. And then I moved up here after being a head coach for 5 years, took an assistant's job with Kevin Hamilton, who I thought was a basketball savant. I thought, I'd never seen anybody whose brain worked as good as his. But as much of the X's and O's as he loved, he was a culture guy. Chris Hill, another guy you had on, played for Kevin at Clark High School. And Kevin had an incredible recall. He could recall every kid's name that played for him. And he loved those kids, but he was tough on them, and he had standards, and they had to live up to those standards. And then they were good. It was like all the basketball pieces fell into place when everything else was already set in stone. I think that culture drives performance in many ways. We stole our cliche for culture from Beard. I've been lucky enough. Beard and I met when we were still in college. We were working Tom Pender's camps. In fact, great story. We met the very first time. We were fired up. He was a manager, and I was in college out in Lubbock, and I was traveling around. I came down and was working camps all over, and we got announced, hey, we got the commissioners for the JUCO League are going to be Coach Beard and Coach Hirst. We're fired up. Are you kidding? You're like, 20 years old, 19 years old. Like, we're the commissioners of our own. Well, the JUCOs were like the 5 and 6 year olds. And it was in the middle of July back then. And they gave us 30 or 40 5 and 6 year olds all day long over at the outdoor courts at Jester Center.
Wow.
In Austin. It was brutal. It was so bad. And so we've been friends a long time, but he coined, Coach Knight's old great quote of the mental is to physical is 4 is to 1. And he's got 4 to 1 plastered everywhere. And I talked to him. I said, hey, man, I know that's your deal, but we kind of want to steal that. And he was nice enough to say, yeah, go ahead. And we've kind of twisted it to make it our own. But with all of those things that we try to teach through basketball off the court, I think that it kind of relates to things on the court. I mean, not kind of, like 100%. Like whether we are or we are not, Matt, our teams think that we're the hardest playing team in the state. Like our goal every year, we're going to take more charges than any other team in any other classification in the state. We're going to dive on the floor for loose balls. We're going to absolutely never call anything a 50-50 ball. If it's loose, it should be our ball. If we can get both hands on the ball, it's got to be our ball. And we're not going to apologize to anybody for playing as physical as we can. If there's a collision and it's an honest play, we'll stick a hand out and help somebody up, but we're not going to apologize for it because we want to be the most physical team on the floor. And then we talk about it. Okay, as important as that is our baseline. If our baseline is then we're going to be the most physical team on the floor, now it's 4 times more important to be the strongest mentally on the floor. But what does that mean to kids today? I mean, we keep our jerseys tucked in while we're in the gym. If we come in the gym, our jerseys are tucked in, and they stay tucked in until we get back in the locker room. We're not going to, have a foul called on us and throw our hands up and try to show up the officials. And we're not going to untuck our jersey as we walk off over to the bench and, hey, everybody, look at me. We're not going to do those type of things. I just don't believe in it. And our coaching staff doesn't believe in it. And we've been doing it long enough now and had enough success with enough great players that it's easy now for us to say, hey, we've had better players than you, and they were able to live up to these standards, and you're going to have to live up to them also. I think that going back to fighting entitlement, like I feel embarrassed for coaches when we play in these shootouts in the spring and the summer, or like at a tournament game where we come on right after a game finished before us and there's just bottles and trash left underneath their benches. I'm always embarrassed. I'm embarrassed for the coach. Like, oh my gosh, he's really missing an opportunity. We clean it up before we start. We'll clean up somebody else's. Do we leave our video room, our classroom, our weight room, our locker room, our gym? Do we leave it nicer than we found it every day? Like those things are directly related to basketball. You want to ask how culture drives performance? Well, it's all connected, and I think that stuff is super important. Can we remain focused in practice? Like if I'm not if you're not the guy that's out there on the court being corrected, if you're on the side, can you be locked in? Right? Like can you say, okay, I'm listening. I'm not going to make that mistake. I'm going to learn from somebody else's mistake. Or are you sitting over on the side and you're not focused on what's happening and you're just saying, oh, woe is me, I'm not out there right now, and I'll start focusing when I get on the court. Well, it's too late. When adversity hits, how do we handle it? Like I said, we're not going to untuck our jerseys. We're not going to have bad body language. We're not going to sit on the bench with our feet thrown out in front of us and our arms crossed. We want to be genuinely invested in the team. And those are things that we think are learned from the values and the standards off the court. And then they bleed right into how you want to play. And all of those things are related in my mind. I don't know, I may be doing a terrible job of articulating it all here, but we get it. The way we want to play and the standards that we have and the culture that we embrace probably isn't for everybody. It's probably not. It can be very challenging for young people because we're not going to take a day off. One of the things that I learned from Beard going out to all his practices, I think one of his secret powers is like he doesn't he doesn't take a possession off in practice. I mean, everybody is on point all the time, and nobody is above being called out. Nobody. Not assistant coaches, not GAs, not managers, and certainly not players. And that's hard. It's hard to not lose your own focus in practice and be upset about something else. And so all of a sudden you don't notice that little Timmy's jersey is untucked, or he's not wearing white socks. It's hard to stay focused and yet not lose sight of what we're really trying to do. I think that's one of his superpowers, and one of the things that I admire and respect about him, and that we tried to kind of learn along the way. I could go on and on. I mean, do we show up early and leave late? Do we have genuine enthusiasm when our teammate does something, or are we really kind of secretly envious? Why not me? I think, we try to use every single day in our practices to get better on the court, but we also try to use it for character development every single day. Every day, our practices are meant to be, some form of character development. And you never know what's going to present itself each day. Yeah. Like, is somebody late? And don't get me wrong, our guys make mistakes more than anybody I know. Matt, you'll come and watch us play sometime, or come to a practice and think, well, heck, all of those things old Hirst just said, their kids aren't doing half of them. Well, that means we hadn't taught them well enough yet, and it's an ongoing process. And so we try to kind of push them and push ourselves. But I think that you can't be a championship team unless you're worthy of it. Let me rephrase. If you have accumulated enough talent so that the talent gap is so far removed from others, then maybe some of these things that we're preaching don't matter as far as winning a championship. But they will matter somewhere down the line, and they will matter after basketball. And I believe that. And I believe that, we're in the greatest profession in the world. We're high school coaches. We're high school coaches, and it's the best profession in the whole world. Certainly not because of the paycheck, but because look what we get to do every day. We get to teach life lessons, and we get to help kids get over what can be a tough time for them. And we get to do it all while being involved in the funnest game there is, basketball. I'm a firm believer in that. And I do think Coach K was right. Championship teams, generally speaking, they're worthy of it, both on but also off the court. I don't know if I may have gotten all my signals crossed and
Coach,
maybe convoluted, but.
No, I just want to first celebrate you. I thought that was awesome. I mean, you did go straight for a long period of time, and I don't know if you took a breath, but it was like what you're saying was right on the money. And I wrote a couple notes down to kind of go back over. Love the Coach K quote, and I think you're right. Life's not fair. Sometimes guys have just players that are better and beats guys that are trying to do those little things right. But you're right. Like again, there's more to Phil Jackson said there's more to life than basketball, but there's more to basketball than basketball. And so I think you nailed it with what we're teaching. And just a couple things. I love that you said it's all connected. And everything that we do is culture. The way that we show up every day, on the floor, off the floor, every little interaction, every social media post, everything matters. And so I think one of the hardest things for a coach, and it's kind of what you said with Coach Beard, is how focused he was, is to not let something slip by as if it's not important. I think that level of focus it takes training. And I had a coach, we were just talking about maybe like schedules, daily schedules and breakdowns with practice and things. And he asked me, when do you do your team building or your culture building? And I just kind of paused and I said, well, all the time, like
daily. Every second.
I don't have a set 5 minutes of this. And then I think one of the superpowers we all need to have is the ability to see culture moments happen right in that moment. When you see a player, like I typically like to, we have 6 baskets going. It's me and 30 kids. So I like our players to be truly player led, for them to zoom out and see what the gym needs. And so when we're organized and we teach the drill, we go and we got a group of 7, freshmen over there, and we only need to have 3 or 4 at a basket. I'll get a senior that turns and zooms out and sees that and goes and orchestrates and organizes it. Well, do I just let that go, maybe give them a thumbs up? Or when I bring it back in before the next thing, hey, by the way, amazing moment by Mason. I think those are those things that we have to do. But so it is all connected. I guess here's a question for you. Oh, before I get to the question, one more thing is Kelvin Sampson said, if you don't know where you're going, then any road will get you there. I think the direction we want to go, or the road, is our standards. And the road to our culture is our standards. So we better know our standards. If we don't know those, then we're going to wind up at a culture that maybe we don't really agree with. So I completely love what you said there. Here's my question is, can everything, maybe this is contradicting what I just said, can everything be important, or can we care as coaches, can we care about everything? Or are there things that we need to let go of some control of? I know I've changed on some things, like team shoes. Used to do team shoes all the time until my best player says, Coach, this style of shoe hurts my foot. And I thought, oh, he averages 28 points a game. He's a great kid, does everything. Do I really want him to be miserable? So are there things that we can give up, but yet not feel like we're losing our culture?
Yeah, for sure. Your question and comments are on point. I remember there was, back when Sports Illustrated was still something that we all, couldn't wait to be delivered or to go pick up at the corner store, before technology kind of changed all that. One of the greatest articles I ever read was written by Frank DeFord, and it was on Bob Knight, and it had a picture of Coach Knight on the cover. He was out hunting. He had his full gear on. I think it was called The Rabbit Hunter. And at the end, the gist of the story was, because it was a fair article, I thought at the time, in that, he was a genius and still flawed, right? And would his flaws eventually overtake his genius, or vice versa? Now that's a simplification. But, the question was, is he too busy hunting rabbits and the elephant's going to get him? It was something along those lines. And that's kind of like what I was saying. Some of the best coaches, certainly Beard, but some other coaches also, that I've known. Steve Silestein here in San Antonio is one of the best high school coaches I've ever known. Those guys, there is a secret power, a secret superpower to paying attention to the details, but not letting the details overwhelm you. And being flexible enough, being consistent enough so that rules still mean something, but flexible enough to recognize when, hey, my best player, who's never done anything, he's busted his butt, and these shoes are killing his feet. Why am I making him wear these shoes? Like, you'd be amazed. Like, I have these weird things, like we're going to wear white socks, mid-calf socks. Part of that is a tip of the cap to Kevin Hamilton, Coach Hill's high school coach, who sadly is not with us anymore. But when I became his assistant, we wore white mid-calf socks, and it was just one of his non-negotiables. Now, I will tell you, if you walk in our gym at any practice, we'll have our reversible jerseys on. We'll have white mid-calf socks. Our jerseys will be tucked in, and there is no telling what kind of shorts we'll be wearing. None, zero. We could have black, gray, white, green. Those are things that don't matter to me. And that's one of the things that, like, we talk to our guys and share with them, like, hey, we're going to ask you to make a few sacrifices. Like, your hair is one of them. Being clean shaven is how you represent us, how you look, how you represent your family name, and how you represent our family name are important to us, right? But when we're getting our work done, if guys are busting their butt, I'm not really that worried about, if they're preparing to play the way we want to play, we want them to be focused on that and not on, I've got the wrong color shorts on. There's some things that I don't want to be out shooting the rabbits if there's elephants out there.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi Podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.